Today on Star Scene, we have a true trailblazer, someone who throughout the music industry has been acknowledged as rock and roll's first female roadie, Tana Douglas. And she's here today to discuss her first book, Loud. Hi, Tana, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. So happy to be here.
I loved your book. It was amazing. So many stories. You didn't, hold back, even with the childhood years where you discussed, your upbringing. It was quite sad to read in some parts.
Well, I think it's important to be really honest. If you're going to tell a story, and you expect somebody to actually read it and get involved in it, I think you have to let go of all of that and just go, this is what it is, So I'm glad you appreciated that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the honesty part. It was such an amazing read. I have loved music all my life, and I could see that for you, it was something like a savior in a way.
Absolutely. From a very young age. I mean, when I'd want to escape, I'd just run into my room, shut the door, put my head under the pillow and turn up my little radio. We had those little funny transistor radios in those days, So, and that was it, and I developed a taste for music at that early age, and it was affected by my surroundings. So I went a little bit towards the darker side, like the heavier music. That was kind of what I lent towards automatically. And, it was never just a noise coming over the airwaves. It was always a journey for me. So wherever the song took me, that's where I wanted to go, and that's where I wanted to be. And it was away from where I was. So it was perfect, and if there was a bad song on, just 3 minutes and it's gone, You're having a bad day in the house, you couldn't turn that off, So the radio was good to me.
Yeah. It's funny when you wrote about asking, what is a roadie? How would you now describe to someone what a roadie is?
Well, now it's a much more complicated animal, I mean, we all jumped in and did everything back then, and then gradually we all separated out into different departments. But now there's so many departments, and everyone's a technician, and they're called a technician, whether an AV technician, an audio technician, or a lighting technician, a stage, it's all of these different departments. So the term roadie doesn't necessarily even get used amongst crew anymore. It's kind of got a bit of a bum rap, I think. People go, ooh, roadie. And it's like, that's what we all were, and that's what started this. So a little bit of respect there, guys. You can keep your titles. Your titles are fabulous. So we know which department you're in, but you're still a roadie.
I love that. You really are a trailblazer. I have to say, a living legend, because you wrote that there's only about 12% of women in the music industry. You helped even those, 12% gain some acknowledgement and some, a foot in the door even.
I'd like to hope so, yeah. I'd like to hope so, yeah. And definitely, we're guessing when we say 12%, but there's different organisations around the world. There's WALM in Europe and Sound Girls over here and Crew Care there. And so between asking amongst all of them, it was like a little bit, because again, roadies are independent contractors. So it's very difficult to get the numbers even of how many there are. And I found that there's an outrageous amount, especially with this time of COVID, where they've fallen through the cracks because they don't get covered, So all of a sudden there's like hundreds of thousands of people who have fallen through the cracks, and they all work in the music industry. And, I mean, an extension of that is theatre, but we're not even going there because I focus on music. But there's theatre, and of course, another extension again is film. But the music industry itself, it's just all the crew, all the production people, and even the production companies. Some production companies have fallen through the cracks. So it's a bit sad, but hopefully as an outcome from this, there will be some sort of registering of actually how many of us there are, because I think it's important to have an official number so people realise how substantial the position is in the economy. The big picture of the economy, we create billions of dollars a year.
It's really lovely. There was an event that happened in Melbourne about 2 or 3 weeks ago where musicians actually cooked for the roadies. They helped barbecue for them, and it was really sweet. Yeah.
Oh, how brilliant is that? That's fabulous. Yeah. Should be more of that.
Acknowledgement. I think that's all you want. Yeah.
You know, it really is. It is, because it's a hard job. It's a hard job, and it can be a thankless job. So when you get some sort of recognition and thanks, it goes so far. You know, it'll keep us going for another month of hell. You know, long hours, no sleep, you know, things breaking, things having to get fixed on the fly. And it just takes a kind word of like, you guys are fabulous. We love you, you know, thanks for it. And it's like, and then we're happy. We'll just go off and continue doing it. You know, you don't have to give us tons of money. It'd be nice if you did, but you don't have to. Just a little bit of appreciation goes a very long way. So that cooking thing's fabulous.
Yeah. And speaking of things, you know, fixing things on the fly, how many things did you have to fix on the fly? Like one that it was devastating to read, but you had to just spring into action, was where one of the riggers fell.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been so difficult to then just get, you know, straight back into your work, because the show must go on.
Yeah, that was Wembley with Status Quo, actually. And we just done Wembley, and we were heading up to Birmingham to do the NEC, and we were actually opening the building. It was the first night, sold out. So we couldn't just say, look, we can't go, we can't do it. There was too much riding on it. And yes, it was really unfortunate. I mean, he fell out of the roof, and, you know, he was our rigger on the tour as well. So we needed him the next day, but obviously we didn't have him for that. But we needed to get the equipment out of the roof, because we needed that equipment, all the steel cables and bridles and shackles and all that sort of stuff, so we could do it again the next day in Birmingham. So the lighting designer, George Harvey, dragged me up in the rear. He says, come on, we're going. You know, okay. And, you know, I didn't mind heights, but that was really high, a rickety old catwalk, which is all open flooring. So you're looking down, like way down at the floor below you. And then because we're pulling these steel cables in, because we couldn't get out there and do what he was doing, because the chance was we might fall as well, especially because it wasn't our job really, you know. So we're making the best of it, and we're pulling and grabbing, and the whole thing's moving and it's creaking, and we're just like, oh God. But that's what you do, you know, you keep going, you know. And, you know, finally an ambulance turned up for him, and he got taken to hospital, and we took everything that we needed and left everything else because it was just too dangerous, you know. So we took what we figured we needed, we worked it out, did all the math for how it was going to be set up the next day, because every building's different, you know. So we did that, and then off we went, you know. So there was no time to, oh, everyone stop, sit down, how are you? Are you okay? You know, there was no health and safety in those days. There was nothing, you know. So, yeah, that was a tough one. He did survive, and but I just don't know if he ever went back to rigging again. I'm not sure. But he survived. That's a good word.
Yeah. And, you know, you're up the top, but you're also sometimes trying to make sure musicians don't fall when they're standing on really rickety little tables and speakers, and I'm thinking of Angus. Right?
Oh, Angus was the worst, you know. I thought he was Superman, you know, and he may be actually after all these years. He may actually be. But, you know, again, you know, we're doing pub gigs and things like that. The idea was to get the PA off the stage, because in those days you just stack it on each side of the stage. But that was less running around space for him, you know. So what we'd do is we'd set it off again, further off again. And, you know, if it was a pub, they'd have those round bar tables, you know, and we'd put like two of them together and get a big W bin on it, you know, and see if it stayed, if it didn't collapse. If it collapsed, we'd get two more tables and see if they were stronger, you know. I mean, it was trial and error, you know, and then we just stack the whole PA up there. But some days it was just so rickety. And it's like, you know, you go in the dressing room, you know, and it's like, you know, I don't think I'd climb on the PA tonight. It's just not that stable. Well, that was as much effect as saying, why don't you keep it turned down? So, you know, you just cross your fingers, hope for the best, and be there at the bottom to catch him if it all comes tumbling down, you know. So that was, you know, another no health and safety standards.
Right. Well, speaking of pubs, I was really interested when you wrote about the fact that you weren't acknowledged as a roadie then. You had to have men stand up and say, yes, she's with us, she's working. That stigma of, oh, you're just hanging around with the band because you're a groupie. How difficult was that to overcome?
It was difficult, and I was really nervous about it too. I was like really sensitive to it because I'm loading trucks, I'm working hard, and and I'm doing exactly the opposite of what other people may be doing when they turn up for that sort of thing. So I was very nervous and very sensitive to the fact if someone said that to me. I was like, hey, and the crews, once they knew me and they worked with me and they knew exactly that I was there to work and I was a good crew person and they were happy to have me with them and I was happy to be with them, then they would like stand up, But the sheer fact that, Sunbury was a prime example, trying to get backstage for AC/DC, even though we didn't end up playing. But, I just peeled off, not thinking. I peel off because, we don't have a lot of time. It's a big festival. We got to get up there and check everything out. The band went to the right. I went to the left to head to the stage. And this big gorilla of a guy with his arms clogged. And it's like, little girl, what are you doing here? You need to go away. And it's like, oh, no, naive me. Oh, no, it's okay. I'm with the band. And he's like, well, if you're with the band, you best go find the band, get out of here, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. And he was quite aggressive. He stepped forward, and I'm like, geez, and finally one of the crew from up above, a guy called Scrooge, he yells down, he goes, no, mate, she's with AC/DC, she's with us, let her up. And he still didn't like it. He's like, and it's like, that's like above your pay grade, sir. Just leave it. Stop it. So that was offensive, and it did happen a lot. But you learn to just roll with it.
Yeah, but you were very young too. You would have been under 18 at that stage.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I left Australia before I turned 18. I had to get my dad to sign my passport so I could go and try rock and roll in England.
And going back to that Sunbury experience, you actually got in between and tried to stop a fight that was happening.
I wasn't so much trying to stop it as trying to stop anyone from hitting my boys. I wasn't a peacekeeper at all. I was just like, whoa, don't touch them. So, when that happened, it's like, well, you got to swing a punch, which I think shocked a lot of people, probably including myself at the time. It's like, whoa. But, that's part of the job. And the funny thing, actually, is the tour manager for Deep Purple at the time has become a lifelong friend of mine. So it's hilarious. We laugh about it all the time.
I hope he wasn't the one you punched.
No, he wasn't. But he was there.
I felt for your leather jacket, actually, with Iggy Pop.
I know. Do you know how hard it is to wear in a leather jacket? It takes years to wear in a leather jacket properly. Swear. Still haven't got one from him. So I hope if anything comes out of all of this that Iggy hears this and goes, oh, God, I best get her a jacket. But I want to pick it. Don't pick one for me. I want to pick it myself.
How difficult was it working with Iggy?
I loved working with Iggy. He's such a character. He's absolute trouble. Definitely trouble, but he's also a really intelligent person and really smart person and really good to talk to, and you can have a great conversation and good company. He's got the two different personas that a lot of people have, his stage persona, which does come off stage with him occasionally, so that can get a little tricky, but it was difficult because it was a low budget tour, but what made up for it was the talent that was on that tour. We had members of MC5, Fred Sonic Smith, we had Scotty Thurston, who'd also been on the Bowie and Iggy tour together. So he'd come back onto this one. So the musician's quality, and it was my crash course in punk rock because, I'd come out of the rainforest, I'd gone to AC/DC, and then I'd gone to Status Quo. So I didn't really have a lot of time to discover punk rock. I mean, I just started, a friend of mine took over a club called the Vortex in London. So I'd go down there and see the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. But everyone I knew were so much older than myself, so they weren't into it. So to actually go on an Iggy Pop tour was like, yay, I've got my punk wings, finally.
That's great. And you were very close to a lot of the artists. They really respected you. You became like a little confidant to them on the road many times.
To some of them, yes. Yeah, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, yeah. And I think, that's the side of having a female on tour, where a lot of people do that. There's different groups and different personalities, and some see you as a challenge, something to try and conquer. Some see you as a little kid's sister. Some see you as, a confidant. It's like, oh, I'm having trouble with my girlfriend or my wife, or what do you think I should do? Or I'll go up and say, isn't it her birthday? Have you even bothered to call? Oh, okay, cool. So there's all those different parameters that came into it as well, and some were just great drinking buddies, and we'd get into all sorts of trouble. So it's across the board, really, It depends on the personality.
You do actually write about a few of those instances in your book, which were great. And when you just said Fred Smith, like when he was talking to Patti Smith over the phone at certain times, I thought that was beautiful.
Oh, it was really romantic. I mean, for me, it was like, oh gosh, maybe there's hope for me yet. It seems there wasn't, but I didn't know that at the time. I know. Never figured that out. I don't know. It's fine.
At the end of your book, it was so sad, the part where you listed people you had worked with who had passed away. That must have been so difficult to actually write.
Yeah, and I think it was an important thing to do, pay an homage to the people who I'd worked with and who'd become friends over the years, and who otherwise people would never know existed, So, and also for their surviving crewmates and friends, it's a nod of respect, and I think that's really important. And the sad thing about it is the list is quite a long list. But that's only people who directly either mentioned in the story. So there's hundreds and hundreds more, so the only way I could do it without it becoming another book was to just keep it restricted to people that were actually mentioned in the book. So people who just buy the book and don't know any of the characters necessarily appreciate it because they've just read something about that person or seen something about them or whatever. So, yeah, but it's a long list. Yeah, it's a very long list.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful that you did that.
Thank you.
Yeah. What made you write this book?
I never had any intention of writing a book, actually. It's I got approached by somebody who just called me out of the blue and said he wanted to write a film script about my story. And I went, and I thought that was incredibly weird. And then he put me on to somebody down in Australia, a chap called Jeff Apter, who's written tons of books himself. And Jeff said, well, I can write it, Jeff sort of got me curious and got me interested in it, and I really thank him for that. But I decided that it was just, if it was my story, I had to tell it, and because a couple of people had put bits and pieces about me in their different books, and it wasn't always accurate. It wasn't always correct. And I found myself apologizing for something I didn't even know happened. You know what I mean? It was like, well, I didn't know it was in the book, and no, I didn't do that. And I'm sorry that because it's like, did you work for Pink Floyd? No, I never worked for Pink Floyd. I worked at Pink Floyd's Britannia Row, but I never toured with Pink Floyd. And so that's how things get misconstrued. So I thought, you know what, I'll just do it myself, and it became a thing, and it was really an interesting journey, and it was very cathartic, and I'm very glad I did it, and I'm glad that people seem to be really enjoying it.
I think the fact that you wrote it and it had the first person perspective really makes this book so great. I mean, I love Jeff Apter. He's an excellent writer, but this had to be your story to tell. So I'm really glad you did that.
Exactly. And Stuart Cooper as well did the Roadies book. I don't know if you did that. And so, and that's actually, you know, how I got the book deal, because they found out about me in the Roadies thing. And so it transferred from there. So from doing a good deed of flying over to promote it, and all that money went to, you know, Crew Care and Support Act, you know, which is a wonderful organisation. So I was more than happy to do it. And so from one good turn, another good turn came. So, you know, there's hope out there for good things.
If you could say something to your 15-year-old self as a bit of a warning, what would it be?
Run. Don't look back, run. No, it wouldn't actually. I couldn't help myself. I had to do that. But no, it wouldn't be, because you know what? Would I have ever seen the world? Would I ever have learned different languages? Would I be living in Los Angeles right now? Would I have a book out? No. So, I mean, it wasn't an easy journey, and you know, but that's partially my fault as well. I mean, I tend to not make things easy for myself, unfortunately. But, you know, I'm learning. I'm still learning. We're always a work in progress, aren't we? But, you know, I don't think I'd change anything. I thought, you know, maybe I'd finish school, but having said that, I'm in the process of doing getting a certificate program at UCLA. So I've got one semester left before I graduate with that. So who needs to graduate high school? Sorry, folks, parents.
What certificate are you doing?
Creative writing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's more writing happening as we speak.
I can't wait. That was going to be my next question. What's next? Oh, that's great. Any hints as to what it might be about?
Nope.
No.
It's a secret. No, we need to digest this one first.
There's a lot here to digest. Tana, our website is called What's My Scene?
Yes.
And if I were to ask you what your scene is, what would it be?
What's my scene? My scene these days is pretty simple. My scene's pretty simple. What I like doing in like my own private time and for myself, like on the top of my list is going and seeing tigers in the wild in India.
Wow.
That's what I want to do next. So hopefully that will be my next scene.
Wow.
But, you know, I spent so many years touring around in major capital cities in 5-star hotels. I'm just not interested. I don't care about any of that. Plus, I'm not going to pay those prices. What are you, nuts? So I like to go, you know, off the grid, you know, and you know, travel to me is just really exciting. I love travel. I love music. So if I can put the two together, then, and if I can write about it on the way, that would be the perfect threesome. Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Who would you want to tour nowadays? Tour with?
You know, there's a couple of shows out there that are really interesting. Tool's got a beautiful production. I saw their production. I used to Tool was one of my clients for years, and I saw some of the shows just before everything got shut down, and it was just great. Their lighting design is brilliant, just a brilliant guy. You know, so that size venue, there's that. You know, there's different bands all over the place that are good. You know, there's Australian bands. DMA is a great band in Australia. I love those boys.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, my pleasure. Yeah, so it's off to a great start. So considering it's not officially out yet, people are buying it and commenting on it and loving it. So it makes me really happy. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. I loved it. I can't wait for whatever you're writing next.
Brilliant.
And also, I would love this to become a film. So whoever it was who asked you about to do a film script, get in touch with them again.
We might need a bigger budget.
I'll have to have the budget, not you.
That's right. That's right. That's true. That would be something exciting. That would be very exciting.
Great.
Fingers crossed for that one.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.